You've been told that breaking free from mental loops requires years of therapy, endless self-help books, and complex psychological techniques. But what if I told you that quantum physics reveals something so simple, so elegant about escaping these mental prisons, that the entire self-improvement industry has been overcomplicating it for decades? What if the very thing keeping you trapped in cycles of limitation isn't actually a psychological problem at all, but a quantum mechanical phenomenon that can be dissolved in moments once you understand how consciousness actually operates at the subatomic level? I'm about to share with you something that billionaires and quantum physicists know but rarely talk about openly, something so powerful that it literally restructures reality around you when you apply it correctly. And the most beautiful part? It's probably the simplest thing you'll learn all year. But first, let me ask you something. Have you ever noticed how the harder you try to break a negative pattern, the stronger it seems to become? How the more you focus on escaping a limitation, the more trapped you feel? How opportunities seem to flow effortlessly to some people while you're stuck in the same mental hamster wheel, day after day, year after year? This isn't your fault. And it's not because you're not smart enough, not disciplined enough, or not worthy enough. It's because you've been approaching this backwards, fighting against one of the most fundamental laws of quantum mechanics without even knowing it. Here's what's really happening in your brain and in the quantum field around you every single day. Your consciousness isn't just observing reality, it's literally collapsing wave functions and creating the very experiences you're having. But here's the kicker that nobody talks about. When you're stuck in a mental loop, you're not just thinking the same thoughts over and over. You're broadcasting the same quantum signature over and over, and the universe has no choice but to keep delivering experiences that match that frequency. Think about this for a moment. In quantum physics, there's something called the observer effect. It means that the very act of observing something changes it at the subatomic level. But what most people don't realize is that your habitual thought patterns aren't just observing. They're creating quantum entanglement with specific probability fields. Every time you run that same mental loop about why opportunities don't come to you, why money is hard to make, why relationships are complicated, you're literally quantum entangling yourself with more of the same. But here's where it gets absolutely fascinating. The moment you understand how to become what I call a quantum loop destroyer, everything shifts. Not gradually, not over months or years, but often within hours or days. Because you're not trying to change your thoughts anymore. You're not trying to think positive or visualize or affirm your way out of limitation. You're doing something far more elegant and powerful. You're learning to collapse the wave function of limitation itself. Let me explain what I mean by this, because this is where most people get confused by traditional manifestation teaching. They think they need to focus really hard on what they want, create vision boards, repeat affirmations, and basically try to convince the universe to give them what they desire. But quantum mechanics shows us that this approach actually strengthens the very loops we're trying to escape. Here's why. When you're trying really hard to manifest something, what are you implying to the quantum field? You're implying that you don't have it. You're broadcasting the frequency of lack, of separation, of needing something external to complete you. And the universe, being the perfect mirror it is, keeps reflecting back more experiences of not having what you want. But a quantum loop destroyer operates from a completely different paradigm. Instead of trying to get something from the field, they learn to become coherent with the field itself. Instead of broadcasting need, they learn to embody the quantum state of already having. And this isn't about pretending or faking it until you make it. This is about understanding that at the quantum level, all possibilities already exist simultaneously. Right now, as you're listening to this, there's a version of reality where opportunities are flowing to you effortlessly. There's a quantum probability where money comes easily and naturally. There's a wave function where relationships are simple and beautiful. These aren't fantasies or wishful thinking. According to quantum physics, these are actual probability states existing in superposition right now. The question isn't whether these realities exist. The question is, which one are you collapsing into experience through your quantum signature? And here's what makes someone a true quantum loop destroyer. They understand that you don't break mental loops by fighting them. You dissolve them by becoming coherent with a completely different probability field. You don't escape limitation by pushing against it. You transcend it by embodying the quantum state where limitation was never real in the first place. Let me give you a perfect example of how this works in real life. I want you to think about a time when an opportunity came to you completely unexpectedly. Maybe someone called you out of the blue with a job offer. Maybe you met someone who became important in your life in the most random way. Maybe money showed up from a source you never could have predicted. Now, what was your mental state right before that happened? I'll bet you weren't sitting there desperately trying to manifest that specific thing. I'll bet you weren't running mental loops about how hard it is to find opportunities. You were probably in a state of flow, of presence, of what I call quantum coherence. You were embodying the frequency of someone who naturally receives good things, even if you didn't realize it at the time. That's your natural state. That's who you actually are when you're not trapped in mental loops about limitation. You're a being who exists in quantum coherence with infinite possibility. The loops aren't your true nature. They're just interference patterns that got created through conditioning, through trauma, through buying into collective beliefs about scarcity and struggle. But here's the beautiful thing about quantum mechanics. Interference patterns can be dissolved instantaneously when you know how to work with them at the quantum level. You don't have to process them for years. You don't have to understand where they came from or why they started. You just need to understand how to shift your quantum signature so completely that the old patterns literally cannot exist in your new coherent state. And this is where most traditional therapy and self-help fall short. It's trying to solve a quantum problem with classical thinking. It's like trying to fix a computer program by rearranging the pixels on the screen instead of changing the code. The pixels will keep regenerating the same image until you change what's creating them at the source level. Your thoughts aren't the source level. Your beliefs aren't even the source level. The source level is your quantum signature, your coherent state, the frequency you're embodying and broadcasting into the field. Change that, and everything else changes automatically. So how do you actually become a quantum loop destroyer? How do you shift from being someone who experiences limitation and struggle to someone who naturally attracts opportunities and abundance? The first thing you need to understand is what I call the coherence principle. In quantum physics, coherence happens when waves are synchronized and reinforcing each other instead of canceling each other out. When you're stuck in mental loops, you're in a state of quantum incoherence. Part of you wants one thing. Part of you believes another thing. Part of you fears a third thing. All these different frequencies are creating interference patterns that literally scramble your quantum signature. But when you achieve quantum coherence, something magical happens. All aspects of your being start broadcasting the same frequency. Your thoughts, your emotions, your body, your energy field, they all align with the same probability state. And when that happens, the universe has no choice but to collapse that probability into your physical experience. Now here's what's crucial to understand. You can't think your way into coherence. Coherence is a state of being, not a mental process. It's something you embody, something you become, something you are. And the fastest way to achieve it is through what I call quantum state embodiment. Let me walk you through exactly what this means and how it works, because this is where everything starts to shift for people. Quantum state embodiment isn't about visualizing or imagining or pretending. It's about learning to inhabit the actual quantum state of the reality you want to experience. Think about it this way. Right now, you're embodying the quantum state of someone who struggles with mental loops and limited opportunities. That's not a judgment. It's just a fact. You're literally being that version of yourself at the quantum level. Your nervous system is calibrated to that frequency. Your subconscious is broadcasting that signature. Your energy field is coherent with that probability. But what if, instead of trying to think your way out of that state, you learned to embody a completely different quantum signature? What if you could inhabit the nervous system, the energy field, the subconscious programming of someone who naturally receives opportunities? What if you could be that version of yourself so completely that your old mental loops literally couldn't run in that new quantum environment? This is exactly what happens when someone becomes a true quantum loop destroyer. They don't break their loops through willpower or positive thinking. They dissolve them by becoming quantum coherent with a reality where those loops never existed in the first place. And here's the part that will probably surprise you. The version of you that naturally receives opportunities, that has money flowing easily, that experiences life as abundant and supportive, that version isn't some future possibility you need to work toward. That version exists right now in quantum superposition. You don't need to become worthy of it or qualified for it or ready for it. You just need to learn to collapse that probability into your experience, instead of the limitation probability you've been unconsciously choosing. But how do you actually do this? How do you shift from embodying limitation to embodying abundance at the quantum level? The secret lies in understanding what I call frequency anchoring. Every quantum state has a specific frequency signature. The state of struggle has a frequency. The state of flow has a frequency. The state of limitation has a frequency. The state of natural abundance has a frequency. Most people try to change their frequency by changing their thoughts. But that's backwards. Your thoughts are generated by your frequency, not the other way around. If you want to think abundant thoughts naturally and effortlessly, you need to first embody the frequency of abundance. Then abundant thoughts become automatic. So how do you identify and anchor into a new frequency? This is where it gets really practical and exciting. You start by recognizing that you've already experienced the frequency you want to embody. You've already had moments, maybe brief ones, where opportunities flowed to you naturally, where money came easily, where life felt supportive and abundant. Those weren't lucky accidents. Those were moments when you accidentally achieved quantum coherence with abundance. Those were glimpses of your natural state when mental loops weren't running interference. Those were previews of who you actually are when you're not trapped in limitation programming. The key is learning to recognize the specific feeling, the specific energy signature, the specific way of being that was present in those moments. Not what you were thinking, but what you were embodying. Not what you were trying to manifest, but what frequency you were naturally broadcasting. And here's something most people miss completely. The frequency of natural abundance doesn't feel like excitement or desperation or trying to get something. It feels like peace. It feels like knowing. It feels like being home in yourself. It feels like the quiet confidence of someone who knows that life is fundamentally supportive and opportunities are always available. When you're truly embodying abundance frequency, you're not thinking about manifestation at all. You're not trying to attract anything. You're simply being yourself so completely, so authentically, so coherently, that abundance becomes the natural reflection of your inner state. This is why trying harder usually makes things worse. Trying implies that you're not already enough, that you don't already have access, that you need to convince the universe to give you something. But the universe doesn't respond to trying. It responds to being. It responds to coherence. It responds to you embodying the quantum signature of what you want to experience. So let me ask you something, and really feel into this question as I ask it. What would it feel like to wake up tomorrow knowing, not hoping, not believing, but knowing at the cellular level that opportunities flow to you naturally? What would it feel like to move through your day from a place of such deep inner abundance that you never even think about lack or limitation? What would it feel like to have your nervous system so calibrated to flow and ease that struggle literally feels foreign to your system? What would it feel like to be so quantum coherent with abundance that mental loops about scarcity simply cannot run in your energy field? This isn't a fantasy. This is your natural state. This is who you are when mental loops aren't creating interference patterns in your quantum signature. And the beautiful thing is, you don't have to earn your way back to this state. You don't have to heal everything or understand everything or process everything first. You can step into quantum coherence with your natural abundance right now, in this moment, simply by choosing to embody it. But here's where most people get tripped up, and this is crucial to understand if you want to become a true quantum loop destroyer. You can't embody a new frequency from the same level of consciousness that created the old patterns. You can't think your way into being. You can't use your analytical mind to force a quantum shift. The analytical mind is actually part of the loop system. It's the part of you that's always trying to figure things out, control outcomes, make things happen through effort and strategy. But quantum coherence happens at a deeper level than the thinking mind. It happens at the level of pure being, pure presence, pure embodiment. This is why meditation alone often isn't enough to break mental loops. Traditional meditation usually involves watching thoughts or trying to quiet the mind. But if you're watching from the same level of consciousness that created the loops, you're just creating a more subtle version of the same pattern. True quantum state embodiment requires what I call dimensional shifting. You're not trying to fix or change or improve your current level of consciousness. You're stepping into a completely different dimensional frequency where the old patterns literally cannot exist. Think about it like this. Imagine you're in a room with really loud, chaotic music playing, and you're trying to have a peaceful conversation. You could try to talk louder, or put on headphones, or ask people to be quiet, or you could simply walk into a different room where peaceful music is playing. The solution isn't to fight the chaos. The solution is to step into a different environment entirely. That's what dimensional shifting is like. You're not fighting your mental loops or trying to overcome your limitations. You're stepping into the quantum dimension where those patterns simply don't exist. You're embodying the frequency of a reality where struggle and limitation were never part of your experience. And here's what's absolutely mind-blowing about this process. The moment you achieve true quantum coherence with abundance, opportunities don't just start flowing to you. They start flowing through you. You become a conduit for abundance to move through into the world. You become a walking, breathing example of what's possible when someone lives in alignment with their natural state. People start asking you what you're doing differently. Synchronicities become so common they stop feeling like coincidences. Doors open that you didn't even know existed. Money shows up from directions you never expected. Relationships improve without you trying to fix them. Your whole life starts reorganizing itself around your new quantum signature. But here's the thing that really separates quantum loop destroyers from people who just dabble in manifestation techniques. They understand that this isn't about getting things. It's about becoming who you actually are. It's about stepping into the truth of your being so completely that limitation becomes impossible. When you're truly embodying your natural abundance frequency, you're not trying to manifest a better life. You're simply being yourself so authentically that life has no choice but to reflect that authenticity back to you in the form of opportunities, resources, connections, and experiences that match your inner state. This is why some people seem to have everything flow to them effortlessly, while others struggle and strain for every little thing. It's not about luck or privilege or being in the right place at the right time. It's about quantum coherence. It's about embodying the frequency of your natural state so completely that struggle becomes incompatible with your energy signature. And the most beautiful part? Once you learn to be a quantum loop destroyer, once you understand how to shift your quantum signature at will, you never have to be trapped by mental patterns again. Anytime you notice yourself falling into old loops, you simply shift dimensions. You step into coherence with a different probability field. You embody a frequency where those patterns cannot exist. It becomes as natural as changing the channel on a TV. You don't fight with the program you don't want to watch. You don't try to convince it to be different. You simply tune into a different frequency, and instantly you're experiencing completely different content. So where in your life right now are you running mental loops that are keeping you trapped in limitation? Where are you broadcasting a quantum signature of struggle instead of flow? Where are you trying to think your way into abundance instead of embodying the frequency of someone who naturally receives opportunities? And more importantly, can you feel, even right now as you're listening to this, that there's a part of you that already knows how to be in quantum coherence with abundance? Can you sense that version of yourself that exists beyond all the mental loops and limiting patterns? That's not your future self. That's your actual self. That's who you are when interference patterns aren't scrambling your natural frequency. And learning to embody that self consistently, to live from that quantum signature, to be that version of yourself so completely that your external reality has no choice but to match it, that's what it means to be a true quantum loop destroyer. Now let me share with you the specific process that I've seen work for thousands of people who have learned to apply these quantum principles in their daily lives. Because understanding the theory is one thing, but actually implementing quantum state embodiment in a way that creates measurable changes in your external reality, that's where the real magic happens. The process I'm about to share with you isn't something I invented. It's something I discovered by studying people who naturally live in quantum coherence with abundance, people who never seem to struggle for opportunities, who have money flowing to them from multiple sources, who live in a state of effortless manifestation without even trying. What I found was fascinating. These people weren't using complicated manifestation techniques. They weren't doing hours of visualization or affirmations. Most of them had never even heard of quantum physics. But they were all doing something at the subconscious level that was creating perfect alignment with abundance frequency. They were all living from what I call embodied knowing instead of mental hoping. And there's a massive difference between these two states that most people completely miss. Mental hoping is when you think about what you want, visualize it, try to believe it's possible, but underneath there's still doubt, still fear, still a sense that you might not get it. Mental hoping operates from the frequency of separation. It implies that what you want is outside of you, that you need to attract it or earn it or convince the universe to give it to you. But embodied knowing is completely different. It's when your nervous system, your subconscious, your energy field, every cell in your body knows that abundance is your natural state, not believes it, not hopes for it, but knows it at such a deep level that doubt literally cannot exist in that knowing. When you're operating from embodied knowing, You're not trying to manifest anything. You're simply being yourself, and abundance flows naturally because that's what happens when someone is in perfect quantum coherence with their true nature. So how do you shift from mental hoping to embodied knowing? How do you calibrate your entire system to abundance frequency instead of limitation frequency? The first step is what I call quantum state recognition. You need to become aware of the specific feeling signature of limitation loops versus the specific feeling signature of abundance coherence. Most people have never made this distinction consciously, so they keep accidentally choosing limitation frequency without even realizing it. Here's what limitation frequency feels like in your body. There's usually some kind of contraction, some tension, some sense of effort or strain. Your breathing becomes more shallow. Your shoulders might tense up. There's often a feeling of urgency, like you need to make something happen or figure something out or control some outcome. Mentally, limitation frequency generates thoughts about what you don't have, what might go wrong, what you need to do to be safe or successful or worthy. It creates mental loops about problems that need to be solved, obstacles that need to be overcome, reasons why things are difficult or complicated. Emotionally, limitation frequency feels like some variation of fear, worry, frustration, or desperation. Even when you're trying to think positively, there's an underlying current of anxiety about whether things will work out. Now contrast that with abundance frequency. When you're in true quantum coherence with abundance, your body feels relaxed and open. Your breathing is naturally deeper. There's a sense of ease, of flow, of being supported by life itself. Mentally, thoughts arise naturally about possibilities, opportunities, solutions, creative ideas. But you're not grasping at these thoughts or trying to make them happen. They just flow through your awareness like a gentle stream. Emotionally, abundance frequency feels like peace, joy, gratitude, excitement, or what I call quiet knowing. It's the feeling of being home in yourself, of being exactly where you're supposed to be, doing exactly what you're supposed to be doing. The key is learning to recognize these two frequencies so clearly that you can catch yourself the moment you slip from abundance into limitation. Because here's what most people don't realize. You're always in one frequency or the other. There's no neutral. Every moment you're either broadcasting coherence with abundance or coherence with limitation, and the universe is always responding to whichever frequency you're broadcasting. Not the frequency you think you're broadcasting, not the frequency you want to be broadcasting, but the frequency you're actually embodying in your nervous system, your subconscious, your energy field. This is why positive thinking alone doesn't work. You can think abundant thoughts all day long, but if your nervous system is calibrated to limitation frequency, if your subconscious is running scarcity programs, if your energy field is contracted with fear, then limitation frequency is what you're broadcasting, and limitation experiences are what you'll receive. But once you learn to recognize these frequencies and consciously choose abundance frequency moment by moment, everything starts to shift. And I mean everything. Not just money and opportunities, but relationships, health, creativity, your entire life experience. The second step in becoming a quantum loop destroyer is what I call frequency anchoring. This is where you learn to lock in abundance frequency so completely that limitation frequency becomes impossible to access. Most people try to maintain positive states through willpower or discipline, but that's exhausting and unsustainable. True frequency anchoring happens at the subconscious level. You're literally rewiring your nervous system to default to abundance frequency instead of limitation frequency. Here's how this works practically. You start by identifying what I call your abundance access points. These are specific memories, experiences, or imagined scenarios that naturally put you into abundance frequency without any effort or trying. For some people, it's remembering a time when they felt completely loved and supported. For others, it's imagining being in nature, or thinking about their children, or recalling a moment when everything flowed perfectly in their life. The key is finding access points that generate authentic abundance frequency, not forced positivity. You want to feel that deep sense of peace, knowing, and natural joy that comes with being in quantum coherence with your true nature. Once you've identified your abundance access points, you practice anchoring into them throughout the day. Not as a technique or a manifestation method, but simply as a way of being. You're choosing to live from abundance frequency because it feels better, because it's more authentic, because it's who you actually are when limitation programming isn't running interference. And here's what starts to happen as you do this consistently. Your subconscious begins to recognize abundance frequency as your new normal. Your nervous system starts to relax into this state. Your energy field becomes naturally coherent with abundance probability fields. But the real breakthrough happens when you reach what I call the tipping point. This is when abundance frequency becomes so natural, so automatic, so deeply embodied, that you literally forget limitation frequency exists. You stop thinking about manifestation, because manifestation is just happening naturally. You stop worrying about opportunities, because opportunities are constantly flowing to you. You stop trying to create abundance because you are abundance, you're living from abundance, you're breathing abundance with every breath. This is when people around you start asking what you're doing differently. This is when synchronicities become so common they stop feeling remarkable. This is when your life becomes a living example of what's possible when someone lives in perfect quantum coherence with their natural state. But let me share with you the most important thing I've learned about this process, because this is where most people get stuck. You cannot fake your way to authentic abundance frequency. You cannot pretend your way to embodied knowing. Your subconscious knows the difference between genuine coherence and mental performance. This is why so many people struggle with manifestation techniques. They're trying to think and visualize and affirm their way into abundance, but their nervous system is still calibrated to limitation. They're trying to broadcast abundance frequency from a limitation-based platform, and it creates internal conflict that actually pushes abundance away. True quantum state embodiment requires what I call authentic alignment. You have to find the version of abundance frequency that's genuinely true for you, not the version you think you should want, or the version that looks good to other people. For some people, authentic abundance feels like quiet confidence and steady flow. For others, it feels like joyful excitement and dynamic creativity. For others, it feels like deep peace and natural knowing. There's no right way to be abundant. There's only your way. And here's something beautiful that happens when you find your authentic abundance frequency. You stop comparing yourself to other people's success or trying to replicate other people's strategies. You start trusting your own inner guidance, your own timing, your own unique path to abundance. Because abundance isn't a one-size-fits-all experience. The universe has infinite ways to bring opportunities, resources, and experiences to you. Your job isn't to figure out how it's going to happen or when it's going to happen. Your job is simply to maintain quantum coherence with abundance and let the universe surprise you with how creative it can be. This brings me to the third step in the quantum loop destroyer process, which I call surrender mastery. This is probably the most misunderstood aspect of quantum manifestation, and it's where most people either have their biggest breakthrough or their biggest resistance. Surrender doesn't mean giving up or being passive or accepting limitation. True surrender is actually the most powerful state you can embody. It's when you're so aligned with abundance frequency, so coherent with your natural state, so trusting of the quantum field that you can let go of trying to control how your abundance shows up. Most people are afraid to surrender because they think it means nothing will happen. But the opposite is true. When you're trying to control outcomes, you're actually limiting the universe to only the possibilities your mind can imagine. When you surrender while maintaining abundance frequency, you open yourself to possibilities that are beyond anything your mind could have conceived. I've seen this happen thousands of times. Someone spends months or years trying to manifest a specific job, or a specific amount of money, or a specific relationship. They're visualizing, affirming, taking action, doing everything they think they're supposed to do. But nothing's happening because they're trying to force the universe to deliver abundance in the exact way their mind thinks it should come. Then they learn true surrender mastery. They maintain perfect abundance frequency while letting go of attachment to specific outcomes. And suddenly, opportunities start flowing from directions they never expected. Money shows up in ways they never imagined. Relationships develop that are better than anything they were trying to manifest, because the universe is infinitely more creative than your mind. The quantum field has access to probability streams that your analytical thinking could never calculate. When you surrender while maintaining coherence, you're essentially saying to the universe, I know abundance is my natural state, and I trust you to deliver it in whatever way serves my highest good. But here's the key distinction that most people miss. Surrender mastery isn't about surrendering your desires or your dreams or your vision for your life. It's about surrendering your attachment to how those desires manifest, while maintaining perfect faith that they will manifest in the most beautiful way possible. This is advanced quantum consciousness, and it requires a level of trust that most people have never developed. But when you master this state, when you can hold your vision while releasing control, when you can embody abundance frequency while surrendering outcomes, You become unstoppable, because now you're working with the entire universe instead of trying to make things happen through personal effort alone. You're tapping into quantum intelligence that's infinitely more powerful than individual willpower. You're allowing the field to orchestrate synchronicities and opportunities that align perfectly with your highest timeline. And this brings me to something that I call the abundance paradox, which is one of the most important concepts for anyone who wants to become a true quantum loop destroyer. The abundance paradox is this: the more you need something, the more you push it away. The more desperately you want something, the more you broadcast the frequency of not having it. The harder you try to make something happen, the more resistance you create in the quantum field. But the moment you embody the frequency of already having what you desire, the moment you operate from abundance instead of lack, the moment you surrender the need while maintaining the knowing, everything shifts. Opportunities flow naturally because you're no longer creating resistance through desperation or attachment. This is why some people seem to have everything come easily to them while others struggle for every little thing. It's not about luck or privilege or being special. It's about understanding the abundance paradox and learning to operate from the quantum state of already having instead of the mental state of trying to get. When you're truly embodying abundance frequency, you're not trying to manifest anything. You're simply being abundant, thinking abundant thoughts, feeling abundant emotions, taking abundant actions, and the universe reflects that internal state back to you in the form of abundant experiences. This is what I mean when I talk about becoming a quantum loop destroyer. You're not just breaking mental loops about limitation, you're dissolving the entire paradigm of struggle and effort and trying to get things from outside yourself. You're stepping into the quantum reality where abundance is your natural state and limitation is impossible. But let me address something that comes up for almost everyone when they first start applying these principles. You might be thinking, this sounds amazing, but what about practical action? What about strategy? What about working toward goals? Here's the beautiful thing about operating from quantum coherence with abundance. Inspired action becomes natural and effortless. You don't have to force yourself to do things or discipline yourself into productivity. When you're aligned with abundance frequency, the right actions arise naturally from your coherent state. But there's a massive difference between inspired action and effortful action. Effortful action comes from limitation frequency. It's based on the belief that you have to make things happen through force or willpower, or grinding it out. Effortful action often feels heavy, stressful, or overwhelming. Inspired action comes from abundance frequency. It arises naturally from your aligned state. It feels light, energizing, and exciting. You're not forcing yourself to do things. You're following the natural flow of your coherent energy toward experiences and opportunities that match your frequency. When you're a true quantum loop destroyer, you never have to choose between being spiritual and being practical. You never have to choose between trusting the universe and taking action. Inspired action and quantum coherence work together seamlessly to create results that are beyond what either approach could achieve alone. And this is where your life becomes truly magical. You're taking action, but it doesn't feel like work. You're pursuing goals, but you're not attached to outcomes. You're creating and building and growing, but you're doing it all from a place of joy and flow and natural abundance. People start asking you how you make everything look so easy. They want to know your secret, your strategy, your system. But the truth is, there's no secret technique or complicated method. You've simply learned to live from your natural state of quantum coherence, with abundance, and everything else flows from that. So let me ask you something and really feel into this as I ask it. What would change in your life if you never had to run mental loops about limitation again? What would be possible if you could maintain abundance frequency as naturally as you breathe? What opportunities would flow to you if you were living in perfect quantum coherence with your natural state of abundance? And here's the most important question. Are you ready to stop being a victim of your mental loops and start being a quantum loop destroyer? Because everything I've shared with you so far is just the beginning. There are specific techniques, specific practices, specific ways of embodying quantum coherence that can accelerate this process exponentially. There are methods for anchoring abundance frequency so deeply that limitation becomes literally impossible to access. If you're feeling a spark of recognition as you listen to this, if something inside you is saying, yes, this is what I've been looking for, then you're ready for the next level of this work. You're ready to move beyond understanding these concepts intellectually and start embodying them at the cellular level. Hit that subscribe button if you want to dive deeper into the practical applications of quantum loop destruction. Because in my next video, I'm going to walk you through the exact step-by-step process that I use with my private clients to help them shift from limitation frequency to abundance frequency in a matter of days, not months or years. And I want to hear from you in the comments. Drop one word that captures how you're feeling right now after hearing about these quantum principles. Are you feeling excited, curious, ready, skeptical? Whatever you're feeling is perfect. Just drop that one word below. But before we go deeper into the practical techniques, I want to share with you something that might surprise you about the people who naturally live in quantum coherence with abundance. Something that reveals why this work is so much more important than just manifesting money or opportunities. The people who have mastered quantum state embodiment, who have become true loop destroyers, they're not just abundant in terms of material resources. They're abundant in every area of life. Their relationships are deeper and more authentic. Their health is naturally vibrant. Their creativity flows effortlessly. Their entire life becomes an expression of their coherent inner state. Because abundance isn't really about having things. Abundance is a way of being. It's a frequency of consciousness. It's a quantum state that expresses itself through every aspect of your experience when you're truly embodying it. This is why people who win the lottery often lose all the money within a few years. They received abundance externally without embodying abundance internally. Their quantum signature was still calibrated to limitation, so the universe eventually brought their external experience back into alignment with their internal frequency. But when you become a quantum loop destroyer, when you shift your fundamental frequency from limitation to abundance, the external changes are permanent because they're arising from a permanently shifted internal state. You're not trying to get abundance from outside yourself. You are abundance expressing itself through your unique life experience. And this is why this work is so transformational for people. It's not just about manifesting better circumstances. It's about discovering who you actually are when limitation programming isn't running interference in your natural state. It's about remembering your true nature as a being who exists in perfect quantum coherence with infinite possibility. This is why some people have such a profound shift when they first understand these principles. It's not that they're learning something completely new. They're remembering something they always knew but had forgotten through years of conditioning and programming. They're coming home to themselves. And when you come home to your natural state of abundance, when you remember who you are beyond all the mental loops and limiting beliefs, something extraordinary happens. You stop trying to fix your life and start living your life. You stop trying to become someone worthy of abundance and start being the abundant being you've always been. Your whole relationship with reality shifts. Instead of seeing the world as a place where you have to struggle and compete and prove yourself, you start seeing it as a friendly universe that's constantly conspiring to support your highest good. Instead of feeling separate from abundance, you realize you are abundance expressing itself in human form. And here's what I find most beautiful about this transformation. When you become a true quantum loop destroyer, you don't just change your own life. You become a living example of what's possible. You become proof that limitation is optional, that struggle is a choice, that abundance is everyone's natural birthright. People feel different around you. They sense the coherence, the peace, the natural flow that comes from someone who's living in alignment with their true nature. Without saying a word, you give others permission to remember their own abundance. You become a catalyst for quantum shifts in everyone whose life you touch. This is how we change the world. Not by fighting against limitation or trying to convince people that abundance is possible, but by embodying abundance so completely, so authentically, so naturally that it becomes contagious. By being living proof that mental loops can be dissolved, that limitation is an illusion, that every single person has the capacity to live in quantum coherence with infinite possibility. So as we wrap up this deep dive into quantum loop destruction, I want you to remember something crucial. Everything I've shared with you isn't just theory or philosophy or wishful thinking. These are the actual mechanics of how consciousness creates reality at the quantum level. This is how the universe actually works when you understand the deeper principles that govern manifestation and abundance. You have the power right now in this moment to choose abundance frequency over limitation frequency. You have the capacity to step out of mental loops and into quantum coherence. You have everything you need within you to become a quantum loop destroyer and start living from your natural state of effortless abundance. The only question is, will you choose to step into this power? Or will you continue running the same old loops that keep you trapped in limitation? The universe is waiting for your decision. Infinite possibilities are waiting in quantum superposition for you to collapse them into your experience through your coherent choice. Opportunities are waiting to flow to you the moment you embody the frequency of someone who naturally receives them. Your abundant life isn't something you need to earn or work toward or become worthy of. It's something you need to remember, embody, and allow. It's who you are when mental loops aren't creating interference in your natural state. So make the choice. Become the quantum loop destroyer you were born to be. Step into coherence with your infinite nature, and watch as reality reorganizes itself around your new quantum signature, bringing you opportunities and experiences that match the magnificent being you've always been. The prison of limitation was never real. The loops were never permanent. The struggle was never necessary. You are free. You are abundant. You are infinite possibility expressing itself in human form, and it's time to live like you know it.